why I think accountants should care about this. This move signals a huge shift in the fintech landscape.
OpenTax, which is built by Adsum, just launched the ability to track corporation tax deadlines.
If you're an existing Wolters Kluwer customer, expect a bit of a transition and uphill. You're going to have to pay a dual platform fee while you migrate your clients. Then when you're finally on the cloud, it's usage-based pricing.
This mid-range ERP segment is just exploding at the moment. There's lots of choice, lots of competitive challenges, and also some great solutions out there for a business or a charity that wants to go to the next level.
We're ready to roll with our next episode of Digitals in a Cruel World. And we have been looking forward to meeting a number of you who have already signed up to AccountAxe at the upcoming AccountAxe. John, tell us a little bit about who is already signed up to come, and talk to us about why other people should come.
So indeed, we have a whole bunch of people from both the accounting bookkeeping community and of course from the vendor community coming to join us at AccountAxe 2025 on the night before AccountAxe. As always, it's going to be a great event. Hoping to get around about 80 people attending our event, and this time it's going to be a little bit different because unfortunately the Xero venue isn't available. It's gone out of business. So we are going to Fairgame instead in central London for a little bit of difference. So we're going to go for a bit of a fairground type theme rather than the axe throwing. So less chop and more roll up, you might say. We are delighted to be sponsored by Karbon, who are going to be sponsoring the food and drink. So great for them to get on board with us. And of course, without the support of the rest of our sponsors, Advancetrack, FreeAgent, iPlicit, Employment Hero, Xledger, and our newest Tier 4 sponsor, Scoro. Of course, we can't hold these events because we rely on them to help us to get everything sorted and to share the noise and the excitement about these things. But of course, there are a few tickets left. If you do want to get hold of one, please jump on the links, which will be here in the podcast thing, and you also find all of the details, of course, on our socials and stuff. But it's always going to be a great event. It's one of the best ways to get into the industry if you're new to this place, but also it's a great way of just connecting again with people without the pressure of being on the stands and everything else that goes with it.
Fairground fun, which we hope there'll be axes at. To be honest, I purchased a few axe throwing boards, and that sounds much more dangerous and exciting than they actually were, because they're just giant sort of plastic things there. One can throw axes out, but they are very good fun. So maybe
I'm sure we'll find some objects to throw.
Yeah,
and then we'll be all right.
Bring them along for those people who really need to throw an axe at something.
Yeah.
Speaking of sponsors, this episode is sponsored by FreeAgent, and our series sponsor is Xledger, who will be on this podcast today and talking more about. Tell us, John, what are they speaking about, actually, before I start ad-libbing and making it up?
I think it's the interview that I did with Laura, because I know that Ryan and I have been swapping around with her, and we talked about the opportunities with business process outsourcing, I think it was, and talked to one of their customers as well in terms of how they've built up their outsourcing business alongside utilising Xledger to expand their opportunities.
Excellent. And alongside that, we're also going to be bringing app news to the people. We've got a whole host of interesting interviews lined up. Who are we trying to book at the moment, John? And who else do we think that we should go and get?
Well, we've got an interview coming up soon with Monica Odysseus, who works in Cyprus. She sits on one of the ICAW groups I'm part of, which looks at data and data analytics, and she's a real AI guru. She's probably the person that I would go to with all of my complex questions because she knows it inside out. She's even got a master's degree in AI, so she is definitely the person to go to. And I'm definitely a bit of a fanboy when it comes to what Monica does. And then we do have another Monica lined up as well. There's Monica Bove, who works for Bove Montero, Spanish firm. Again, we're going to be talking to her about technology and some of her background, because she's not an accountant. She's got a commercial background. She's worked for some really big businesses like Coca-Cola and some others. And so I think she brings a fascinating spin into the world of accounting and business that not many others can bring. So that'll be great. And I know that we've got a fairly long list of other people that are knocking down the door that want to be involved. And we've also got a list of people that we'd love to get on as well. So trying to coordinate that as we run up to summer is always a bit of a fun challenge. But if you're free and you want to come on and you've got something interesting to say, we'll definitely hear you out. And then if you're really good, we'll definitely get you on the pod.
Strong opinions, always welcome.
Absolutely.
Without further ado, should we kick on to app news?
Why not? Why not? And I'm kicking off with app news today, which is a very neat little update from the OpenTax guys, which is built by Adsum. And they've just launched into their platform the ability to track corporation tax deadlines. So a little bit of background if you're not kind of aware of who Adsum are and their OpenTax product. But it's a product that they built probably, 2 or 3 years ago, that built off the back of being able to fund the gap between when you submit a return, typically VAT, but also other taxes as well. And they were providing finance to fund that gap between when you submit your return and then the money arrives maybe a few weeks or sometimes a few months later if you get an inquiry or get delays on that. And so they were starting to build a platform to facilitate that, I guess, internally, and they've turned it into an outward-facing product. And their first protocol was to do VAT deadline management and allow us as advisors to see what's going on with our clients when it comes to VAT, what the return periods are, when the due dates are, what's been paid, what's overdue, etc. And subsequently added pay as you earn and now corporation tax to the platform. So a really neat little place for you to kind of aggregate all of your client tax data together, because I think certainly from my experience of working in practice, it can be quite challenging because it can be in lots of different places and it's not always particularly dynamic as well. So some of those deadlines can be a little bit static, particularly things like corporate tax and personal tax, which isn't in their platform yet, but I'm sure is what they're going to work on next. And having some visibility of that across the platform and a portfolio is really important. And I think what's also important is that, I guess, particularly in a larger organization like the one I work in, is that you may have managers and partners who have sort of like an overall responsibility for a client, but don't necessarily get involved in some of the day job in terms of maybe doing the corporation tax or doing VAT returns, but they still want to have some visibility of what's going on in the portfolio so that they can minimize the risk. And if they think, oh, look, that VAT return looks like it's going to be overdue, let me go and find out who should be doing it and pick it up internally. They've got that ability to intervene as well. So neat little update. I actually spoke to, they had some guys fairly recently, and they've just come on board actually as a partner and a sponsor for the pod, which is great. So happy days. Serendipitous timing for everyone.
Wonderful. I've got something different, which is from Airwallex, the fintech that's already shaking up cross-border payments, who we all know and love. It's setting its sights on becoming a full-fledged bank. Brace yourself, fintech to bank. The company recently revealed plans to secure banking licenses in both the UK and US, but here's the twist. Airwallex isn't just applying for licenses the traditional way. In the US, they're looking to acquire a bank to fast-track their approval. Not uncommon. It's a great way at the moment because there are those that have already gone through the process of making the application, getting the license granted, and in some cases, that in itself is their core value proposition, is just running a really good, compliant small bank. Why the UK? Well, it's all about the market conditions. Airwallex sees the UK as a prime location for fintech growth, with solid regulation from the Financial Conduct Authority. But the US is slightly trickier. With more complex state-level regulations, Airwallex is betting on an acquisition strategy to streamline their path to become the fully regulated bank. It isn't just about getting licenses. Airwallex has also expanded its financial offering, adding payroll services and supplier payments across multiple currencies in France and Benelux, with more European countries on the horizon. Plus, their recent partnership with will further strengthen the cross-border transaction capability, which is essential for any accountant who is working with international clients. Now, why I think accountants should care about this move signals a huge shift in the fintech landscape. Airwallex is pushing hard into lending, which they have been doing for many years, and could even be offering more services that clients may need, working capital being one. If Airwallex succeeds in becoming a bank, it could create new competition for traditional financial institutions and opportunities for SMEs looking for more agile, tech-driven banking solutions. So not just on the current accounts, but also card payments. We're talking lending on working capital, etc., etc. I think it's huge opportunity for Airwallex. And yeah, it sounds like they're making some very good strategic waves in the right direction.
And what's the implications, Indy, of them getting that banking license? I mean, obviously, I mean, it allows them to, lend more formally in the UK, for example. But what else does that enable them to do, for example?
I'll give you a contextual example because I think that's a little bit better. But think
Hmm.
about like all these payment cards that are out there, and you have them, and they are like expense prepaid debit cards, etc. When you've got that banking license, it allows you to take on more risk for that program. So thinking of some of the expense cards that are out there, they'll have a bank, an underlying bank who issues the IBAN, and then and issues the card. That in itself opens up a new route of how Airwallex could work with other businesses who have businesses or consumers as their customer as well. Um, I think it's more important from just the payment infrastructure. They've got a very good answer to cross-border payments on card. And that's not been something that they've done, over the last like 6 months. That's been many years of that. So I think it's just more solidifying the fact that this is probably a cleaner way to make sure that they've got that cross the core of what they do, bread and butter is that, cross-border payments on whether it's lending or whether it's, cards, whatnot. I think that's what, this is good for them on that. So
Do you think it gives them some regulatory diversity as well? I mean, I think one of the challenges around Airwallex more recently has been some of the ownership and linkage into sort of Hong Kong and China. I know there's been some pushback with certain customers. We had a challenge with an Australian business, for example, that sort of couldn't get on board with Airwallex as a consequence of that.
true. Yeah, I think that it might also reinforce that, yeah, like that they've got that status and that is something that as as a business, you would look to other regulators or other governance and controls that then would make them less of a kind of a risk or a concern on that front. But yeah, I think certainly what we found when we were in banking infrastructure, um, without having that level of regulation or license, you are hampered with what terms you can define as like the risk profile of your clients. And
Mm.
so, if you are the bank and you are regulated, you've got all of those processes on your terms and your control, and who you accept, therefore, becomes something that you are regulated on, and you can, if you've got good governance, invite other sectors, other market segments that aren't being looked after.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Okay, moving on then. So I've got a quick update from Xero, particularly for UK businesses. So you can now utilize their online bill payment functionality that's been in there for a while, powered by the good guys at Crezco, to make global payments. This has been in beta testing for a little while now, probably I guess last 2 maybe 3 months, and was launched mid-April. So it's now available for everyone who wants to get on there. And Xero, of course, have got some great stats around the implications of doing this. And so one of the big things that they pulled out is that they have identified that over half of small businesses are spending more than 4 hours each month managing accounts payable. So that's a fairly decent chunk of time, isn't it, every month? And if you can smooth that out and get rid of that a little bit, that definitely helps. So like I say, powered by Crezco, international payments is now available. You can pay bills in 25 plus different currencies. So all of the typical ones you'd expect, euros, US dollars, Aussie dollars. I'm going to run out of ones really quickly here, but the typical kind of countries that you can find, and that enables you or facilitates you the ability to pay money to over 180 different countries and stuff. Rates are super competitive. If you've been using Crezco historically, international payments has been in the platform for a while now. I think since at least the summer of last year, but I might get that timing a little bit out of step. But obviously, it's now there in the main Xero product, and it's there for people to use. So great stuff. And the other thing that you don't have to worry about, linking back, I guess, to the Airwallex conversation, you don't have to worry about e-wallets or foreign currency accounts and stuff. You can do that all from your UK account and do direct transfers from sterling into these other currencies. I'm sure over time that you'll have the ability to open additional accounts and hold currencies if you need to. And I guess that kind of lends itself to more the treasury management style that the larger business might be more interested in, particularly if they're receiving and paying money in similar currencies, because it just makes management a bit more straightforward.
Very nice. It's good to hear Crezco's name again. Holla. I've got a here we go again moment. Wolters Kluwer has launched their long-awaited CCH iFirm personal tax and accounts production cloud tools. I feel like we need a klaxon.
Awooga.
But let's be real, it's not exactly breaking new ground in the cloud accounting space. We've heard the promises for years before, haven't we, John? The latest pitch is that these cloud products are supposed to help firms reduce errors, manage compliance better, provide slicker user experience. But here's the catch. The tools are still a long way from offering full feature parity with their on-premise counterparts. So the plan is to slowly layer in functionality over the next 2 to 3 years. Translation, get ready for more of the same teething problems we've seen in the previous cloud migrations. And the pricing, this is where it gets a little bit cheeky. New customers will pay based on usage, like for the number of tax returns or set of accounts they process. So if you're an existing Wolters Kluwer customer, expect a bit of a transition and uphill. You're going to have to pay a dual platform fee while you migrate your clients. Then when you're finally on the cloud, it's usage-based pricing. So hello, potential price hikes down the line. Speculation, conjecture. Sure, they're promising to reduce the setup time and another smoother transition with automatic data migration. John, do we really trust them after years of soon-to-come upgrades?
Oh, you mean after the AccountAxe red T-shirt debacle from a couple of years ago? That was a good one, right? Look, do you know what? I'm going to counter your cynicism a little bit here, Indy, and say, I went to a CCH Roadshow event. I think it was back in September, so it is a little while ago. And they showed off some of these products that are launching into the iFirm platform, and I was genuinely impressed with what I saw. So there you go. Of all of the old hat, sweet, products that are moving to the cloud, they are by far and away the organization that are in front of the pack when it comes to chasing down the incumbent cloud products that are doing these kind of things already. I think my only mild concern is that back in September we had a roadmap that ran through to around about end of 2026 to get full feature parity, and we've already seen from this announcement that that's going to be delayed a little bit, which is a bit frustrating because for organizations like ours, again, where we're in this transition from on-prem to cloud, we're really interested in trying to nail down our strategy and try and figure out where do we hang our hat, what products can we look at, and then can we figure out the timing for these things? Because the transition period for any firm, unless you do one big bang, which is quite unusual, is typically around about sort of 12 or 15 months with that handover. And I think the other thing on the pricing, when it comes to per usage pricing, that isn't unusual. That's not unfamiliar to us in this cloud accounting SaaS world. Other vendors, other on-prem suite vendors already charge on a per file basis or whatever and things like that. So I'm comfortable with that. I mean, from my point of view, as long as there's not some crazy matrix overlaid with this, which is then on a per user basis and per site, per office, and God knows what else, then keep it simple and make it really easy for me to understand the cost of production. That's what I'm interested in.
Well, if they can turn you, John, then they can turn anyone. So we better believe that maybe it's not just an emperor's new clothes moment. I'm really, really hopeful for your sake and everyone else's.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? We'll see where it comes to, because I think there's lots of promise here, but there's also increasing amounts of competition. So that's the key thing. Moving on then to an announcement from Caseware. Caseware have launched a product called Validate. I think, if I remember rightly, and again, I might be wrong here, but I think this was an acquisition they made not so long ago. But their Validate product is doing something that there are a few other tools in the market doing a similar thing, but it allows you to speed up the review of financial statements by uploading the draft financial statements you've got, and it'll run a whole bunch of checks, really simple things like addition checks, but it'll also check that the notes and the tables in your accounts and stuff add up and they link together and they have the correct numbers in and those kind of things. And then also, flags up where maybe you've got missing disclosures or anything that doesn't really tie together. Now, as I said, this isn't something new in the market. KPMG have had a product that they've had for knocking around for ages. Used to be on-prem, is now on the cloud. Data Snipper have got something similar, and there are 2 or 3 others on the market. But these kind of tools are increasingly important for accountants, particularly larger firms. Again, where we probably deal with more complex accounts and more challenging sets of accounts, maybe that sometimes are prepared by our clients and given to us for review, and there's a back and forth there and a challenge around version control and stuff. So great little tool. I guess if you're a Caseware user and you want to just have this bang, just bash straight into your system, this is the way to go. But if you want to have a look at this and compare it to the rest of the market, I would do that as well and see what comes out on top.
Amazing. And Intuit's on the move again is our final piece of news this week. This time they've acquired GoCo, a leader in HR and benefit solution. The goal is to offer small and mid-market businesses a powerful all-in-one platform that integrates finance, payroll, and now human capital management. And so with GoCo's tools, businesses can seamlessly manage everything from hiring and onboarding to benefits administration, all directly integrated in QuickBooks Payroll and the Intuit Enterprise Suite. This acquisition makes perfect sense for accountants, especially those working with growing businesses. It's smoother, unified system for managing the financials, the workforce, reducing the back and forth between lots of different platforms. It's very in keeping with Intuit's strategy for the last few years of being able to go deeper into the suite of different business services that an accountant, but also other businesses would benefit from. Interesting thing about GoCo is the AI-driven HR solutions. They also bring more personalized insights, helping businesses optimize their teams and improve productivity. Intuit's move to integrated HR management alongside payroll isn't so much about the convenience, but it's about the scale, building more scale to businesses, more efficiencies, et cetera, et cetera. So the deal is expected to close Q4 in 2025. And if history is anything to go by, it will be a game changer for accountants. Look at what happened when they integrated MailChimp into the accounting software. It's a very holistic journey. So this is a great way of managing clients in the mid-market space. It's not so much about simplifying the operation or cutting down on manual work. And it's also for the customers you have, it's a much more seamless experience. Not that we are paid in any way by Intuit, because we really are not. But I do think that strategy that they offer around holistic business management, very clever. So the guys at Intuit that are looking at this space, I mean, it's not uncommon that we would see an accounting tech linked to a HR tech. John, you probably have more context for us on that, but what do you think about this?
I mean, I think like you say, India, it's a really interesting thing. I think it's a good strategic move. I think what Intuit seem to be doing now with QuickBooks, and in particular the larger products, is they're turning it into an ERP, really, aren't they? By virtue of the acquisitions that they're making, they're turning the core QuickBooks professional product or whatever they call it nowadays into essentially an ERP system, and that's where it's going to end up. That sets them apart from their other competitors like Xero and like FreeAgent and others. So I think it's a good thing. Again, I guess the other challenge though for them is it sets them against some other really large competitors, but they're big enough to kind of compete with those. I don't know too much about the product that they bought because I think it's a very US focused one. But as you say, HR systems and finance systems go together hand in hand. So it makes perfect sense.
Peanut butter and jelly. That's what we like. Or Marmite and peanut butter, which is also a very good combination, I'll have you know.
Sounds
I'm sick, aren't I? Right. Well, that wraps up news for this week.
Well, here we are with another session talking around Xledger and why it's a great product for those scaling businesses that are looking to move out of probably the traditional cloud solutions and into something a little bit more scalable and functional for the requirements and needs. I'm joined again by Laura and also got a special guest, Sam, who we'll come to in a second. But Laura, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name's Laura, Principal Solution Consultant at Xledger.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. And Sam, delighted to have you on. I don't think we've had you on the podcast before, which is exciting. So welcome. And you're from Moore Insight. So maybe just provide a little bit of background about what you do and I guess maybe why you partner up with Xledger as well.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Sam Rose. I'm a Principal Consultant at Moore Insight. Moore Insight is part of the Moore Global brand, one of the biggest accounting brands in the world, and we specialize in ERP consultancy. We have a breadth of experience across a range of solutions, and we specifically partnered with Xledger in order to meet some of the challenges that we were seeing within the mid-market solution offerings that were present around some of the competitor context. We think they're an innovative and developing a lot of new functionality, and they've got a real investment and drive, especially within the UK sector at the moment.
You talked about this tiered system, or this idea of tiers in the accounting segment. I mean, could you maybe just explain that a little bit more for maybe people who aren't quite so familiar?
Sure. So tier 3 would be more QuickBooks, Xero, anyone utilizing more of a bookkeeping accounting software. Tier 1 being Oracle SAP, so catering for multinational, multi-currency, multi-language entities that sit across a huge range of companies and or organizations. And tier 2 sits somewhere in the middle, whereby it's achieving a lot of that functionality, but maybe doesn't go to the level of complexity that some of the tier 1 solutions would do.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess probably a lot of people will have heard maybe the horror stories about tier 1 implementations where they take months and months and months and cost like 6 figures plus, and no one ever comes out the other side sort of satisfied. And I guess that's maybe one of the other big differences between tier 1 and tier 2, isn't it? Is like you can often with a mid-sized solution get a really good outcome for a client or a business.
So Moore Insight, we're a strong believer that there's a non-linear relationship between cost and functionality within ERP. So you spend a hell of a lot more money to get a little bit more functionality. And a lot of the time with tier 1 implementations, the name carries a lot of weight with it. But in terms of the functionality and the depth of functionality between tier 1 and tier 2, it's not as deep or as big as you think it might be. And we also find software selection is really important part of embarking upon an FMS implementation, which is probably one of the biggest things that a finance team can do. And a lot of people think this is a big name, and there's a lot of big companies using it, therefore I'm safe. But you really need to think about what it is, what solution fits your organization, rather than what solution has fit an organization that is massive and has 100 different currencies, and it might work for them, but it's not necessarily going to be applicable to you.
I know a couple of years ago, back when I started, kind of mid-pandemic, there was a lot of people that didn't know the mid-market. They almost didn't know it existed. They knew, your smaller systems existed, some of the older systems, and then your big, your SAPs, those kind of systems. But they didn't know there was this whole world in between. And I think that's something we're seeing, coming to the forefront, is actually people understanding that there is an alternative that still, again, as Sam said, ticks a lot of the functionality boxes, but is much quicker to implement and considerably more cost effective.
Sam, you talked about one of the key benefits, I guess, of these systems, and I was just really interested to hear sort of other thoughts on what the other benefits are, aside from that kind of cost value implication of the complexity conversation.
It's even less about the price sometimes. It's actually around the degree of complexity with respect to implementing them. I think I referenced earlier, implementing an FMS could be one of the hardest things that a finance team can do. And you're going to make that job a hell of a lot harder if that solution is designed for very large organizations, because those large organizations will carry with them a greater resource pool, or a resource pool that's experienced with respect to implementation. Quite often we see what I describe as the curse of the must-have. It must have this and it must have that, and you therefore rule out a lot of solutions that would actually tick nearly all of the boxes. So you need to weigh up the cost profile and functionality profile of your solutions. Applying a must-have to some functionality rules out some solutions which would have otherwise been a great fit, but you've only ruled them out because it doesn't do this one thing that you do once a year, and actually the person would prefer to do it offline than in the system.
I've seen that myself as well. Is like, you offer quite often where you find poor implementation of software. It doesn't even have to be complex software. Is that what quite often what you see as a business or even an accounting practice is trying to mold that system around their pre-existing processes and operations, even though they actually need to be updated to accommodate some of the automations or the opportunities that new piece of software presents.
Absolutely. I think purchase requisitions is a great example of we're carrying forward something that we've done, and this is a must-have requirement. Well, really, when you open the lid, most of the purchase requisitions are automatically converted to a purchase order. So you may as well just get a system that allows for approval against purchase order. That ticks the box. But you'd be surprised about the number of organizations who just want to carry forward exactly what they're doing into a new system.
We see that as well from, the pre-sale stage, showing them the solution. They're asking these questions. And what we tend to find is we kind of go, like, what do you need that for? What is the purpose of that? And 90% of the time, they can't answer that question. And, you've got a room full of blank faces that are like, I don't know why we do this. And I think what we do really well when we implement is we don't just lift and shift. We do a very consultative approach. We do workshops. So one of them is a processes workshop to go through what they do today, and we can get the right outcome. It's just actually, if you do it in this way, which is quicker, more efficient, you still get into the right result. But it's, having those conversations. And, as Sam said, there is usually some barriers to that change, be it people who are not involved in the process, or, they've only ever worked on that existing solution. And it's kind of there is always a bit of fear that they're, is this going to replace me? Those kind of conversations. But we manage that with it's still, there's still things that need to be done, but it's in a different way. And we find the most successful implementations are ones that, embrace that change.
I think there's a couple of things there. It's one of the things, I think, Moore Insight and Xledger, a lot of us are accountants, if not all of us are accountants, and have done the job of running a set of books and doing a VAT return. And it's having that ability to actually know what it is that people are doing in their role that I think makes an ERP implementation a lot easier. So if you actually speak to people and you can speak their language, that really helps. And so with Moore Insight and Xledger are definitely aligned with respect to how those implementations are approached. And then I think, John, you'd referenced earlier, you've been at a lot of implementations. It's the implementation that's the problem. And that carries through to there also, in that typically what we find is it's not the software that's the problem, it's how it's been implemented or not implemented. It's just kind of turned up and hope for the best sort of thing. And if you're not able to speak that language, it's going to be really hard to bridge that change that needs to happen.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunities there, but when we're talking about scaling clients and the challenges and opportunities, I guess one of the challenges you pointed out was around just having the expertise and experience to be able to have a successful implementation, and that even drills down into, I've seen businesses really struggle to do an element of dual running for a period of time where they overlap one system into another just to be comfortable. But what are those opportunities you talked about? What have you seen in your experience where here's a great way of saying this is a great opportunity to jump into an Xledger over above what you've got before?
I think it's being able to choose a solution that's scalable with you, both with respect to transaction volumes and Xledger particularly. It's the multi-entity functionality that allows you to quickly set up a new entity. So in a lot of other systems, if you're required to set up a new entity, it's almost like a mini implementation, whereas the ability to inherit controls and settings from a parent level within Xledger is really strong. I think there are a lot of the industry at the moment is subject to a lot of change, whether that's structural or investment coming in. I think what clients want is a long-term partner who they can feel trusted in their FMS provider with. And I often would speak to, in terms of IT infrastructure and potential, I would say that the FMS is the most important piece of the IT infrastructure that they have. Some people may want to say, no, actually, it's a financial IT infrastructure, but maybe in my accountant head on it, I'm only thinking about the finance side. But it touches every business process that you do as an organization. And if you're unable to rest a degree of confidence in the company's ability to sustain that for the long run, be innovative and develop their solution in the long run, it presents a high risk to those clients. So I think there's a great opportunity for Xledger within the market to work with people who are trying to scale their businesses in a partner they can trust for the long run.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a perfect place to stop there. And thanks for those great insights, Sam, and obviously your contributions as well, Laura. It's great to hear both sides of the coin. And yeah, I mean, we're big fans of Xledger as well, and we see that there's great opportunities, like you say, Sam, in terms of those businesses that are wanting to move on to the next level. There's a huge opportunity there, and this this mid-range ERP segment is just exploding at the moment. So there's lots of choice, lots of competitive challenges, and but also some great solutions out there for a business or a charity that wants to go to the next level.
Thanks again for joining us on this week's podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Like we said, open invitation for those who have strong opinions, loosely held, and are willing to be challenged on this podcast. And join us at AccountAxe, not really AccountAxe anymore. We need to come up with a better invention of a name for this account fairground thing. But join us there. And if you're not already part of our community, sign up, get in the WhatsApp channels, get on the Slack channels, and join up to our newsletter. So we'll catch you on the next one.